The current immortal world did not lack prodigies. There was always someone better. Hanyu smiled. He's different. Different in what way? You will understand in the future. Tianyong curled his lips, feeling that Hanyu was biased. At this moment, a golden light soared into the sky and pierced through the sea of clouds. In the pillar of light, a dragon soared into the sky and rose in front of Hanyu and the other person. The two of them looked over with stunned expressions. Qinling's halberd lifted the gray-robed Taoist up and blood splattered all over the ground. The gray-robed Taoist's chest was pierced. His eyes widened in shock. Qinling was also stunned. He hurriedly put down the golden halberd and looked nervously at the gray-robed Taoist. Are you all right? Qinling helped the gray-robed Taoist to sit down. He was only sparring and did not want to kill anyone. The gray-robed Taoist immediately pulled out his halberd and meditated on the spot, circulating his energy to heal his injuries. Qinling was extremely nervous. The gray-robed Taoist was shocked and felt more aggrieved and embarrassed. He had almost been killed. If Qinling had not stopped in time, he would have been split into two by the golden halberd. The gray-robed Taoist wished he could find a hole to hide in. He no longer had the face to take in a disciple. He only wanted to leave as soon as possible. At this moment, a figure suddenly landed. It was Tianyong. Tianyong was the reincarnation of the son of the Calamity race's heavenly Calamity Emperor. His potential was terrifying and he had obtained Hanyu's inheritance. He had long surpassed the immortal realm. He looked down at Qinling and said, "Take me as your master." His tone was unquestionable. Qinling frowned. The gray-robed Taoist was furious. He had just been injured and was about to be intercepted. Tianyong raised his right hand and made a grabbing gesture. A tall mountain dozens of kilometers away suddenly rose. Dust rose into the sky and shook the world. The gray-robed Taoist and Qinling were stunned. Tianyong clenched his right hand and the peak shattered. Qinling widened his eyes. The gray-robed Taoist was also shocked. That peak was at least 10,000 feet tall. He didn't know how to move mountains and seas like this. Tianyong said expressionlessly, "Kneel down and acknowledge me as your master." Qinling clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. Tianyong said disdainfully, "What? You're not convinced?" Qinling gritted his teeth. "My home is gone." Tianyong was stunned and looked embarrassed. He coughed and could no longer put on airs. "Disciple, follow me in the future. You and your mother don't have to hide in the mountains." Qinling was silent. He did want to go out for a walk. Time passed quickly. Hanju opened his eyes again. Another 5,000 years passed. His state became more and more ethereal. His eyes were profound as if they contained countless indescribable, wonderful techniques. Soon, Hanju muttered to himself. His eyes finally revealed excitement, causing him to regain a trace of humanity. He opened the emails. To him, 5,000 years was very fast, but in the mortal world, it was a new era. Your good friend Divine Lord Peacock was cursed by a mysterious curse. Your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor controls the power of darkness. Your good friend Empress Huta was attacked by a mysterious Tao Devil, X82902211. Your son Han Tuo has entered the Great Tao Trial Ground. Your good friend Pen Xin has entered the Ancient Desolate. Your descendant Hanyu has learned a heavenly Tao mystical power. Your good friend ancestor Shitian was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure. His soul fell into the cycle of the Great Tao and is enduring all the suffering in the world. Your good friend Huang Zuntian has obtained the power of origin. His cultivation has increased greatly. Pan Xin had actually left the heavenly Tao. What was this fellow trying to do? Hanju frowned, worried that Pan-Xin would attract enemies. Looking down, Ancestor Shitian's encounter made him sigh. However, the chaotic consciousness was too powerful and Hanju couldn't help. Should he curse? However, that would cause endless trouble. Hanju felt that his identity as the Dark Forbidden Lord was easily exposed. At least, his enemies thought that he was related to the Dark Forbidden Lord. Can the chaotic consciousness barge into my Dao field? Hanju asked in his mind. 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Yes. Hanju could only apologize to Ancestor Shitian. The two of them were not on good terms. He naturally did not have to risk his life for Ancestor Shitian. Moreover, it was useless even if he risked his life now. Hanju continued to read the emails. After reading all the emails, he looked at the immortal world. The current immortal world was extremely exciting. It was unknown if it was because of the sages, but prodigies were prevalent now. All kinds of legends and rankings regarding prodigies were spread throughout the various regions. Their glory even covered the mighty figures of the world. Hanju suddenly saw Hanyu's Providence appear on the Heavenly Dao Providence board. He had already entered the top 100. Apart from the providence of the human race, there was also a strange providence on him. Even he couldn't see it clearly. Hanju pinched his fingers to deduce and revealed a strange expression. This strange providence came from one of Hanyu's karma, his grand disciple, Qinling. Qinling had cultivated for 500 years and already had the cultivation of an immortal emperor. His cultivation speed was even more terrifying than Hanju's. Vilti. Hanju deduced Qinling's background. He could not deduce it. Interesting. Hanju had no choice but to use the derivation function. I want to know Qinling's background. 10 million years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? His value was a little high. At least for an immortal emperor. A line of words appeared in front of him. Qinling, rank 3 immortal emperor, heavenly Dao divine soul, primordial world overlord body, ancestral dragon providence, son of the immeasurable calamity, son of heaven and earth. There were so many connate providence traits? Hanju raised his eyebrows. This was even more impressive than his opening. Could this be the son of the immeasurable calamity that heavenly venerate Shendu mentioned? Why was he under Hanyu? Hanju pinched his fingers again and deduced that the origin of this karma came from Li Daokong. It turned out that Li Daokong had discovered Qinling's extraordinariness and asked Hanyu to accept him. Qinling's appearance was actually noticed by the other sages. Pan-Xin happened to leave the Heavenly Dao and head to the Ancient Desolate, so he missed it. Li Daokong attacked immediately. The sages who were on good terms with Hanju tacitly agreed to support him. Emperor Shao and Jinshin were afraid of offending Hanju, so they could only let go. Although Qinling was extraordinary, he had yet to show the providence of the son of the immeasurable calamity. The sages did not have the system to distinguish it. Countless geniuses in the immortal world caused phenomena when they were born. The reason why Qinling attracted the attention of the sages was because of the initiative of a 5-clawed golden dragon. This 5-clawed golden dragon was not simple. It had always been hiding in the depths of the immortal world and had lived for countless years. Tracing its origin, it could be attributed to the primordial dragon race. Hanju began to observe Qinling. Qinling was cultivating on Buzhou Divine Mountain. His blood essence was powerful and his aura was imposing. Hanju nodded. Hanyu was not bad. The disciples and grand disciples he took in were all extraordinary. They all had powerful backgrounds. As long as Hanyu did not act recklessly, he could dominate the heavens in the future just by relying on his disciples. No matter what, Qingling was also a member of the hidden sect. It was a good thing. Many geniuses also appeared in the hidden sect outside the 100-peak Immortal River, but there was a missing person among the outer sect disciples. Apart from talent, a true prodigy also had to be famous. What was fame? It was the reputation of stepping on other people's corpses. He retracted his gaze and started to visit Divine Lord Peacock in his dreams. Previously, he had seen Divine Lord Peacock suffer a mysterious curse and was worried that something would happen to him. The dream was above the Yellow Spring. Hanju met Divine Lord Peacock in the image of the Dark Forbidden Lord. Divine Lord Peacock opened his eyes and heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that it was him. "Why are you being cursed?" Hanju asked. Divine Lord Peacock looked at him in surprise and asked, "You can sense that?" Hanju didn't answer and replied with an attitude. Divine Lord Peacock waved his hand and said, "Don't worry. Previously, I only placed the karma bead in a place to make it stronger. In the end, I gave that fiend celestial a chance. TSK, he's really the cursed fiend celestial. However, his curse is too weak. Even without the karma bead, he can't curse me to death." He had been defeated by the inauspicious Divine Emperor previously. In the past tens of thousands of years, he had regained his confidence in dealing with the cursed fiend celestial. Hanju asked, "You can't kill him?" Divine Lord Peacock said, "The chaotic fiend celestial is not that easy to kill. This fellow is not the main body. I can only chase after him and make him unable to rest." Hanju said, "All right. If you can kill him, I'll help you attain the Great Tao." Divine Lord Peacock's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Of course." "All right, just you wait. Even if it's 1,000,000 years or 10,000,000 years, I'll definitely kill the cursed fiend celestial. To be honest, I don't like him either. He's so sneaky and sarcastic." Hearing his words, Hanju felt that he had been tricked. Then, he asked him about his recent encounters. Divine Lord Peacock didn't hide anything. During the pursuit of the cursed fiend celestial, Divine Lord Peacock had also encountered many cultivators and mysterious worlds. Because of the appearance of the inauspicious Divine Emperor, Divine Lord Peacock suspected that a terrifying existence who controlled all the Tao devils might also appear. Divine Lord Peacock asked, "What do you think about the Great Tao Immeasurable Calamity?" Hanju said, "I'm prepared. Continue your task in peace. As long as you kill the cursed fiend celestial, I'll ensure that you survive the Great Tao Calamity." Divine Lord Peacock was relieved. Hanju didn't say anything else and removed the dream. His greatest reliance was the Tao field. As long as he attained the Great Tao, the Tao field would definitely level up again. Once the Great Tao Immeasurable Calamity began, he would directly use the invocation technique and forcefully summon all the disciples who had grasped the invocation technique back to transcend the tribulation together. If Divine Lord Peacock could kill the cursed fiend celestial, Hanju would also teach him the invocation technique. Of course, if Divine Lord Peacock couldn't do it, then don't blame Hanju for being cold and heartless. Inside the Taoist temple, Hanju opened his eyes. "I want to know how long more the Great Tao Immeasurable Calamity will take to arrive. 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" TSK, it was already equivalent to the value of a Tao creator. "Continue. If there are no major changes, it will be in about 23 billion years. Fortunately, it was far enough. However, this major change..." Hanju suddenly felt that it was not reliable. The heavenly Tao Immeasurable Calamity had been brought forward. Could the major change be referring to him? Hanju was secretly vigilant. He had to be more well-behaved in the future and not change the situation in the chaos easily. I want to know what the first battle of the great Tao immeasurable calamity is like. Hanju asked again in his mind. 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Hanju entered the illusion. He opened his eyes and discovered that he was standing in the void. Countless meteors floated in the surrounding dark space. They were very scattered among each other. A huge light ahead expelled the darkness. He narrowed his eyes and saw a huge head in the light. He couldn't see its true appearance. He could only see the other party's long hair fluttering like dragons. What a big head! Hanju estimated that it was even larger than the entire heavenly Tao. How exaggerated was this? Even though they were extremely far away, Hanju could still feel how tiny he was. On the dragon's head stood a burly figure. He held a golden halberd and wore silver chain armor. He wore a dragon's head jade crown and looked mighty and domineering. Wasn't this Hanyu's grand disciple, Qinling? This child would start the first battle of the great Tao immeasurable calamity? Figures appeared near the 5-clawed golden dragon. All of them emitted powerful auras. The weakest was at the zenith heaven golden immortal realm. A vertical eye opened between Qinling's eyebrows, and his 3 eyes turned red. He glared at the huge and majestic head in front of him and shouted angrily, "Children of the heavenly Tao!" The chaotic deities did not tolerate the heavenly Tao and destroyed it. Today, we must kill him and avenge the heavenly Tao and fight for it. So what if they're the chaotic deities? The era of chaos has long passed. The power of the primordial chaos is unstoppable. Kill with me! The 5-clawed golden dragon roared angrily and flew away. It was extremely fast and swept past Hanju in the blink of an eye. What a domineering aura! Hanju felt that Qinling had already surpassed the great Tao Sage realm. Even the 5-clawed golden dragon under his feet was extremely powerful. In the boundless light, the huge head suddenly opened its eyes. A pair of huge eyes appeared, and their pupils were filled with the image of Taiji. Humph, a mere heavenly Tao dares to destroy the chaos? Panga couldn't do it back then, let alone you. A cold snort sounded. Even Hanju couldn't help but feel a little dizzy when he heard it, let alone the heavenly Tao experts behind him. They all swayed and stopped. Qinling stepped on the 5-clawed golden dragon and swung his halberd. A black spatial crack appeared with his halberd and quickly expanded, colliding with the chaotic deity with unstoppable force. The eyes of the chaotic deity suddenly transformed into 2 huge vortexes that absorbed the black crack. He could even absorb space. Qinling waved his halberd again. His muscles tensed up. Just by looking at his figure, one could feel the explosive power. Boom! The entire void shattered and was replaced by a purple space. Boundless purple mist surged in and drowned the chaotic deity. Wake up! A voice came from behind Hanju. He turned around and saw that the heavenly Tao experts who had fallen head over heels for him had all woken up. The future great Tao immeasurable calamity was so terrifying. Qinling's casual strike directly shattered the dark forbidden zone. It was too exaggerated. Fortunately, there were still more than 20 billion years to go. Who was the last mysterious figure to appear? He should be on the same side as Qinling. Could it be him? This was because Hanju saw many shadows behind that figure. All of them looked terrifying. It was very likely his grand unity aspect. In addition, Qinling also mentioned the primordial chaos. There was nothing wrong with the primordial fiend celestial establishing the primordial world. Hanju adjusted his state of mind. The future is so terrifying. I have to maintain a cultivation attitude and not relax. Hanju thought silently. He had to stand in the strongest position to be at ease. When he reached his strongest, he would definitely indulge himself. One thing was certain. Even 20 billion years later, there were still very few great Tao sages. There was not a single great Tao sage among the heavenly Tao experts who followed Qinling. There was only one freedom sage and less than 20 heavenly Tao sages. Of course, there was another possibility. That was that the chaotic deities had destroyed the heavenly Tao and killed all its great Tao sages. The next boss, chaotic deities. Buzhou Divine Mountain. At the top of the mountain, in front of a Taoist temple, Qinling, who was dressed in white, sat by the cliff and absorbed the connate qi of heaven and earth. Han Yu walked out of the Taoist temple and came to his side. Qinling opened his eyes and looked up at him. Grand Master. He was very respectful to Han Yu. After so many years, he already treated him like family. Usually, his master, Tianyong, did not care about him at all. It was his grandmaster who taught him cultivation. Hearing this, Qinling stood up and clenched his fists. He said excitedly, "I'm willing. Grandmaster, when are we leaving?" He was already tired of meditating and cultivating every day. He had always wanted to spar with others, but the living beings of Buzhou Divine Mountain were all quiet cultivators. His grandmaster did not allow him to cause trouble. Han Yu smiled. "There's no hurry. I'll teach you some mystical powers first." Qinling nodded excitedly. This was the era of prodigies. The geniuses were all high-spirited and arrogant. They were waiting for such a huge opportunity. Perhaps this 10,000 dynasty pilgrimage ceremony was not the number one in the heavenly Tao, but it would still allow the geniuses who stood out to be closer to it. For a time, the immortal world changed. Boom! Lightning interweaved. In the endless darkness, red mist surged. Pan Xian knelt on an altar. There were huge pillars on all four sides. On the pillars were carved sinister and strange figures of fiend celestials. In front of him stood a huge purple crystal, quietly spinning and floating. "So, you can't control the heavenly Tao?" A vast voice sounded. He was stronger than the sages, but he couldn't kill them in the heavenly Tao. This made the heavenly Tao sages not afraid of him at all. What made him most depressed was that these sages rarely left the heavenly Tao, as if they were deliberately guarding against him. "All right," Pan Xian replied. He rolled his eyes and said carefully, "I want to attain the great Tao, but relying on the inheritance of the giant god Pangu is not enough." He was not stupid. Since he couldn't defeat a sage in scheming, he would think of a way to increase the difference in cultivation. Now, he was already at the perfected freedom primordial chaos realm, but he had no clue how to attain the great Tao. There were no related records in Pangu's inheritance. The ancient voice replied, "Your foundation is not enough. Wait for now. Strengthen your heavenly Tao Providence first." Pan Xian frowned and could only give up. The ancient voice said, "Don't be restricted by the existing concepts. The chaotic fiend celestials were only born from the chaos. As time passed, the era moved even more. There will definitely be new potential that surpasses the past. Otherwise, how can the chaos continue?" When Pangu appeared, the chaotic deities also didn't think highly of him. The potential of any living being born can't be guessed. Not to mention the chaos, even living beings born from the heavenly Tao can have extraordinary potential, such as me and Hanju. Pan Xian pondered. A beam of light shot out from the purple crystal and entered the space between Pan Xian's eyebrows. Pan Xian stood up, bowed, and left. The altar returned to silence. The flashing lightning continued. In the myriad worlds projection, in a virtual space, the personal disciples of the hidden sect sat around a long table and discussed intensely. Xing Hongxian suddenly appeared. She found a seat and sat down. After cultivating in seclusion for a long time, she needed to relax, so she wanted to understand the situation in the immortal world. Xing Hongxian heard them talking about the 10,000 dynasty pilgrimage ceremony and mentioned the names of many geniuses. For example, Dugu Xing, Xian Yuanche, Qin Ling, Hua Yin, Zhao Jing, and so on. She couldn't help but touch her abdomen as her eyes filled with anticipation. When the black-held chicken saw Xing Hongxian appear, it suddenly smiled and said, "What do you think our little master's potential will be after he's born?" Everyone looked at her. Xing Hongxian was Hanju's publicly acknowledged Dao companion, so the disciples naturally didn't dare to joke. Li Daokong muttered, "#1 in the world." The other disciples agreed. Xing Hongxian shook her head and smiled. "What's the use of having good potential? Don't you know your master? After this kid is born, he will definitely be locked up in the 100-peak immortal river and can't go out." She did not deny Li Daokong's words. She knew her child's potential the best because, with his help, her cultivation level increased much faster than before. It could even be described as soaring. They did not blame him. If not for Hanju's domineering rules, many of them would have died outside. It was precisely because of long-term cultivation that they could have their current cultivation level. They didn't dare to talk too much about Hanju and the topic quickly changed. Li Xianao clicked his tongue in wonder. Qin Ling's potential is stunning in the entire immortal world. His cultivation level is at the immortal emperor realm and he can already reach the deity realm. Furthermore, he can suppress everyone forcefully. Senior, your judgment is as good as ever. Li Daokong smiled. "It's alright. The one teaching Qin Ling is mainly my disciple. It has nothing to do with me." Zhou Fen suddenly appeared and asked curiously, "Your disciple also has master's bloodline, right?" Han Tuo's existence was no longer a secret. Especially when the personal disciples who went out saw Han Yu, they were shocked. This matter could not be hidden anymore. Xing Hongxian also said that she knew about this, so the disciples had no scruples. Li Daokong nodded. The other personal disciples discussed Han Yu and Han Tuo. Sun Chang'an smiled. "No matter what, Qin Ling is also a disciple of our hidden sect. In the future, you should take care of the people outside. Prodigies are very easy to target. Don't let him die young." Li Daokong nodded, indicating that he hoped so. He was a sage and only had one disciple. There were many things that he could not interfere in and could only rely on the power of the hidden sect. The exchange in the myriad worlds projection was only the shadow of a great era, but from this, it could be seen how successful the human race's pilgrimage was. More than 100 geniuses appeared in a grand ceremony. Every one of them had a reputation that was known by at least billions of living beings. 10,000 dynasties came from different regions. The humans and living beings of the various regions were naturally most concerned about the geniuses who represented their regions. Therefore, even if they were ranked in the dozens, they would still be the pride of a region. In a region, there were not only 10 billion living beings, but trillions. Qin Ling was also famous in the world, but because his cultivation level was too low, he couldn't overshadow the other geniuses. He was still far from being the #1 in the world. After the end of the pilgrimage, the immortal world was in turmoil. Many geniuses were attacked and killed. The conflict between the dynasties became more and more intense, but it was generally peaceful. In the eyes of the sages, it was considered peaceful as long as there was no domain-level war. The immortal world was so big, it was impossible for there to be no conflict. At noon on this day, Hanju slowly opened his eyes. His eyes opening meant that another 5,000 years had passed. To the living beings of the immortal world, it might be a lifetime, but to mortals, it was 100 lifetimes. He was already very close to the great Dao realm. He was only a step away. He did not check his emails or observe the immortal world. Instead, he recalled his great Tao of extreme origin. The great Tao realm was the transcendent realm. Hanju didn't need to accumulate cultivation anymore. He only needed his soul to break through the door of the great Tao. Unknowingly, he felt a mysterious force pressing against the door of the great Tao, preventing him from pushing it open. Hanju didn't believe it. He wanted to forcefully attain the Tao with the great Tao of extreme origin. It was just a stupid door. Why couldn't he break through? Hanju focused and mobilized the power of the great Tao of extreme origin. His soul jumped into a mysterious void. Figures appeared in front of him, all facing the door of the great Tao. The door of the great Tao stood in the void. It was 10,000 feet tall and majestic. It seemed to represent the other side. It was terrifying. Hanju walked past the other Tao pursuers and suddenly discovered a familiar figure. Pan Xin. This fellow had also begun to pursue the great Tao? Unfortunately, he was still far from the door of the great Tao. Hanju continued forward and soon arrived at the door. The door of the great Tao seemed to be made of white rock. Its surface was engraved with various patterns that recorded the deeds of the various races of the chaos, including the humans. Hanju saw many myths. Pangu splitting open the heavens, Nuo mending the sky, Gonggong angrily crashing into the Buzhou mountain, Jingwei filling the sea, Hoi shooting the sun, and so on. These were all myths and legends that Hanju had been influenced by in his previous life. They only occupied a small corner of the great Tao door. There was a figure at the top of the great Tao door. His figure was strange and extremely distorted. He was meditating and had dozens of arms. Every palm held a mysterious item that even Hanju couldn't see clearly. That was probably a chaotic deity. Hanju retracted his gaze and looked at the great Tao door again. The door of the great Tao looked as firm as a rock and could not be pushed open. Hanju condensed the great Tao of extreme origin. A huge black shadow slowly emerged from his body and quickly condensed into his figure. Then, he quickly became burly, like those ancient fiend celestials carved on the door of the great Tao. The great Tao of extreme origin roared angrily and pressed his palms against the door of the great Tao. It began to push the great Tao gate with all its might. Hanju showed a frown. Something was indeed wrong. Something was obstructing him. Hanju immediately used the Dharma Idol fusion technique and fused the heavenly constellation Fiend Celestial, the Strength Fiend Celestial, the Battle Fiend Celestial, and the other Fiend Celestial Dharma Idols with domineering power into the great Tao of extreme origin. At first glance, it was as if shadows emerged from Hanju's back and entered the huge black shadow formed by the great Tao of extreme origin. Every time a Fiend Celestial power entered, the black shadow of the great Tao of extreme origin would increase by 10,000 feet. Boom! The door of the great Tao began to shake violently. It was enough to show how terrifying Hanju's strength was. The entire immortal world was in front of Hanju. He could easily crush it into dust with a finger. How dare you! A shout suddenly sounded, causing Hanju's soul to tremble. He suddenly looked up and saw black mist surging above the door of the great Tao. It was like a huge beast crawling on the door of the great Tao and looking down at him. Hanju saw a pair of cold eyes. He had seen many such eyes before. They were all filled with contempt for ants. Hanju said, "Why are you stopping me?" The black mist said in a low voice, "How can a mortal enter the door of the great Tao?" Hanju didn't believe it and continued to make the great Tao of extreme origin push. The door opened a small crack. A violent wind roared out, but it could not shake the great Tao of extreme origin. Hanju secretly heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that the mysterious black mist couldn't stop him with all its might and could only use some small methods. Without the recognition of the chaotic deities, you are not allowed to step into the great Tao. Mortal, you are courting death. The black mist said angrily, its voice even louder than before. Hanju asked, then, how do I obtain the recognition of the chaotic deities? Kneel down and swear to the great Tao that you will forever be loyal to the chaotic deities and the chaos. Hanju smiled. So this was the trap. No wonder the Tao ancestor wanted to disappear. It seemed that he was restrained by the chaotic deities. A line of words appeared in front of him. Detected that you are threatened by a great Tao divine spirit. You have the following choices. 2. Push open the door to the great Tao. You should cut through all obstacles and risk your life on the path to the Tao. You can obtain a great Tao fragment and a creation spirit stone. A choice that had not appeared for a long time. Ever since Hanju attained the Tao, such choices were almost extinct. This time, the system was clearly biased towards option 1. Hanju felt that the system was going against him. It always used more rewards to lure him on the path he didn't want to take. He directly chose the second option. You chose to open the door to the Great Tao and obtained a Great Tao fragment and a Creation Spirit Stone. At this point, Hanju gathered 9 Great Tao fragments. He continued to control the Great Tao of extreme origin to push the door of the Great Tao. At this point, he couldn't lower his head. Hanju could only take a gamble now. He bet that after he attained the Great Tao, the Tao field could be upgraded. Open for me! Hanju roared in his mind. The black mist on the Great Tao door became even angrier and roared, Mortal, you will pay a price you can't afford. Hanju was not afraid of him at all. If it was really a chaotic deity, he might still feel scared. However, the system notification indicated that this fellow was a Great Tao divine spirit, an existence similar to a Great Tao sage. Clearly, this fellow was using the chaotic deity's name to intimidate others. Boom! The doors of the Great Tao were constantly pushed open, and the wind that whistled out was even stronger. The black mist dissipated. The Great Tao divine spirit knew that it was useless to talk nonsense and could only leave. Despair Tao spirit has developed hatred towards you. Current hatred points, stars. Great! I'll curse you when I get back. A dazzling light emerged and covered Hanju's figure. At the same time, he felt a powerful suction force. The wind began to reverse and no longer blew out but in. He immediately stepped into the door of the Great Tao. Boom! Thunderclouds gathered in the immortal world and the myriad worlds. Terrifying heavenly might enveloped the heavens. Even the 33rd heaven was suppressed by the heavenly might. The sages walked out of their Tao fields and gathered in front of the universal hall. What's happening? What a terrifying heavenly might. Did something happen to the heavenly Tao? Could it be that someone has attained the Tao? Previously, when we attained the Tao, there was no such phenomenon. Then what's going on? The Great Tao immeasurable calamity has descended in advance? The sages couldn't help but look at Heavenly Venerate Shendu. He knew the most. Heavenly Venerate Shendu frowned. I'm not sure, either. Let's wait and see. To have such heavenly might means that the heavenly Tao is protecting itself and warning all living beings. To be predicted by the heavenly Tao means that it's not a calamity. His words made the sages heave a sigh of relief. They were afraid that the chaos would attack again. It had been tens of thousands of years since the last heavenly Tao crisis. They could finally take a breather and cultivate in peace. They did not want to face enemies stronger than themselves. The sages were so flustered, let alone all living beings. The current immortal world was not as isolated as before. With the integration of the calamity race, all living beings had a better understanding of the chaos and knew that many powerful existences hiding in the chaos hated the heavenly Tao. Because of the protection of the Tao field, the hundreds of thousands of disciples did not feel anything special. In the Taoist temple, Hanju had already begun to break through. Freedom transformed into the great Tao. From his body, dharmic powers, soul, to his senses, he had transformed in all aspects. Hanju opened his eyes, causing golden light to burst out. The myriad worlds were reflected in his eyes. His vision swept towards the chaos at an extremely fast speed. He saw worlds and domains that were either magnificent or sinister. He saw Tao pursuers wandering in the chaos. He saw the evil heavenly emperor, Han Tuo, and Chu Shuren, as well as many enemies. At a glance, it was not spying. Hanju was worried that he would see a transcendent existence like chaotic consciousness and immediately retracted his gaze. 49 years later, detected that you have attained the great Tao. You have the following choices. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner and maintain your original intention. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, a creation spirit stone, and a chance to upgrade the Tao field. As expected, the Tao field could be upgraded. Hanju immediately chose the second option. You chose to cultivate in a low-profile manner and maintain your original intention. You obtained a great Tao fragment, a heavenly Tao spirit stone, a creation spirit stone, and a chance to upgrade the Tao field. The Tao field has begun to upgrade. Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. He finally began to level up. Although it felt good to reject the great Tao divine spirit, he would inevitably be worried later. As Hanju consolidated his cultivation, he checked his attributes panel. Name, Hanju. Lifespan, 265,060/1029 兆9999亿9999万9999999999亿99999999999999。9. Race, primordial fiend celestial, immeasurable emperor. Cultivation, early stage great Tao primordial chaos realm, perfect sage. Technique, primordial chaos reincarnation great Tao, heavenly cycle body tempering. Great Tao of life and death, great Tao of karma, great Tao of extreme origin. Hanju was excited. Soon, he restrained his emotions and continued to consolidate his cultivation. After breaking through, his dharmic powers were increasing at an extremely exaggerated speed. His soul was still transforming. This feeling was extremely wonderful, even more extreme than any joy in the world. In the chaotic void, countless meteors surrounded a huge palace in the shape of a vortex. This palace had no ceiling and the ground was extremely vast. A figure suddenly descended into the hall. It was Jiayin. Jiayin bowed. A black shadow appeared on the steps in front of him like a whirlwind. It was difficult to tell its true form. Exalted God, the Hanju you're looking for has been hiding in the heavenly Tao and can't be killed, Jiayin said respectfully. The black shadow said in a low voice, this child violated the rules of the great Tao and must be eliminated. I'll leave this to you. Jiayin smiled helplessly. Our sects Kundi and Jade Bodhi died under the hands of the Dark Forbidden Lord one after another. Hanju is closely related to him. If you want to deal with him, it's best to deal with the Dark Forbidden Lord first. When you deal with him, I'll attack Hanju.